As we get started, I just wanted to open up about a story of a compliance manager I know really well. She's been tracking agency licenses manually, struggling to generate reports of license expiration dates and CE compliance periods. She needs to see if newly onboarded producers have been appointed since she submitted contracting papers weeks ago. And there are about a dozen compliance risks involved with her process, but she's neither empowered nor equipped to make decisions and take actions to mitigate this risk. And I hope this is not too familiar a story in this Zoom room. I know this story all too well because this was my story. This is my story. This is me. So I'm Andrea. I sit with the product team at AgentSync, as Julie mentioned, currently based out of California. In full transparency, before I had this role, I'm pretty sure I would not know what the day-to-day of a product manager looked like. On this team, I talk to our customers and our prospects, and I create solutions based on those chats. AgentSync is a Denver headquartered company. A lot of us are remote. We focus on solving core issues of producer lifecycle management in a single unified configurable platform. So what we'll cover today, I know data sounds very exciting. So what I want to cover is how outdated processes and stagnant data hold you back. I like to call out the next one as the art of the possible, what it could look like to have full access and use of your data. And finally, how you can get there. So when you hear the words data-driven or data strategy, I'd love you to think about what that means to you in your role, or even what emotions these words data-driven or data strategy triggers. And I know how these webinars go. I've been a part of many of them. So if you want to participate, feel free. If you want to write in the chat, that's great. Give us a little intro of your title. But these words I would hear time and time again as a compliance manager. And when I was doing license admin work, I was hearing these words from my finance team, from sales operations, even from legal. Everyone had great intent for business outcome, but I was often not a part of creating that solution, even though I was the one closest to compliance data. Today, I want to emphasize how strongly I feel about the fact that data is for everyone. Without you, without an end user that can provide transparency, that can identify pain points in your process, the data alone will not provide solutions for your organization. I'm confident that in at least one of your workflows today, whether you're at an agency, MGA, carrier, there is data in your back office systems that's unnecessarily siloed, and someone somewhere is doing manual data entry or tracking. These outdated processes and stagnant data are holding insurance organizations back. All of us would agree that this is an industry-wide problem. Just accessing up-to-date and accurate information requires multiple system logins. I'm thinking NIPR, even Sila, your admin systems, maybe even Excel. And then it requires manual data entry and cleanup. Worse yet, the data being collected and updated in one system never creates a blanket update to ensure all systems that you need are up to date. Not to mention keeping up with the ever-changing state-by-state regulations, right? I get it. Managing state regulatory requirements and staying on top of state changes is next to impossible alone. The simple fact is that we know in the insurance landscape, there are 54 different jurisdictions covering all these licensing, appointment, and compliance rules. In fact, my colleagues and I at AgentSync identified over 250 changes to state regulatory requirements last year alone. Without a comprehensive system for tracking and managing those changes and applying them to your producer management workflows, you can drown in state updates. Today, a lot of these changes are tracked in old workflows. I've been thinking, what if you felt confident in a solution that actually captured these changes? What would that change in your workflow today? And ultimately, giving producers is also a part of your job, giving them a great experience. Are you able to provide that with the data that you're tracking today? Why is it all so challenging, and why must we meet the industry where it is today? It's because there isn't a single source of truth on distribution channels. Producer and distribution channel data isn't structured, leaving your team to decipher meaning from disparate data points. It's really time-consuming to pull accurate distribution channel reports, and then to keep those reports up to date for leadership, for any RFPs you have to do, for business cases, for internal projects. And ultimately, there's no simple way to organize, understand, and manage your distribution partners, which compounds the data management issue. We know this complexity isn't news to you. Everyone is creating and buying point solutions to try to work around these problems, but all that does is create more silos and inefficient workflows. A major drawback of legacy technology is its inability to integrate with newer software. You need systems that can actually communicate with each other and paint a complete picture of your data in order to make informed business decisions. The complexity of the insurance industry state-by-state regulation system means it's crucial for all systems to be integrated and updated in real time to avoid compliance violations. This technical debt wastes employee time and opens you and your organization up to compliance risks. Just think of all the extra costs a carrier working off a manually coded system had to pay to adapt when states like Massachusetts and Kansas completely overhauled their state appointment processes. Without updating to automated compliance management solution, an agency could open itself up to a higher risk of compliance violations. I love this. If you're looking for proof outside of our own industry, how outdated tech and manual processes and data silos can result in catastrophe, all you need to do is remember last December when Southwest Airlines' internal infrastructure just melted down in a very public consequence. Southwest was still using their tech stack from the 1990s, which I know doesn't feel that long ago, to power operations in 2022. Throw in a little bit of inclement weather and you've got a recipe for disaster. According to Transport Workers Union of America Local 556, which represents Southwest's flight attendants, its members have been complaining for years and have repeatedly asked or demanded that the airline upgrade its technological infrastructure. Nothing says crisis waiting to happen like a tech stack from the 1990s. In Southwest Airlines' case, when their technology failed, people had to try to manually do what a modern system should have been doing all along, and it simply wasn't possible. So, what can we do to fix this? When done right, data can be leveraged when making strategic business decisions, such as create accurate hierarchy structures, competently map your partners to understand distribution coverage, identify opportunities to optimize territories and expand, accurately pay out commissions, enable just-in-time appointments to onboard producers quickly without shouldering upfront costs, have actionable reporting, and then make informed business decisions. But data in the insurance industry is incredibly siloed, making it tough to just access key data on your distribution partners, let alone organize, understand, and action on that data. What we've seen is that you can easily analyze and visualize key market insights with the click of a button. What do you need to put in place to go from where you are today to where you want to be? Here are the things I needed and wanted as a licensing and appointments coordinator: a user-friendly interface with ongoing system updates and product improvements, something I can understand, a system I know how to use, the ability to automate onboarding processes with highly configurable workflows, a modern REST API connectivity that can work with other company tools, configurable reports and dashboards with the ability to surface relevant insights, and ultimately easily accessible data directly from an IPR. My colleagues and I have heard time and time again from customers that solving for these types of requirements will allow our customers to get from where they need to be when it comes to compliance. Sorry, just saw some note. Great. Let's use data to optimize distribution. Here are some ways how. So strategic data points at your fingertips. What does this mean? A daily two-way sync to a source of truth that helps you know that your producers are in compliance with relevant state licensing and appointment regulations by ensuring that you have real-time data from all inputs. In addition, system automations that reduce manual errors and hands-on attention should be able to automatically trigger emails and reminders to producers and agencies in your workflow while updating the CRM you're using with relevant details without you spending the time. Key insights into distribution channels. Compliance teams are a cost center for carriers. It's necessary, but it is expensive. Your team can actually prove their worth when they can access metrics that show how effective you are at meeting the bar of total compliance. Data that's digestible can help build customizable reporting. Up-to-date, accurate, and centralized distribution partner data. Compliance missteps on the part of your downstream partners can still expose you to risk and cost your organization. Portals that empower you to maintain your end of the requirements without draining your team's time are non-negotiable for total compliance. And onboarding producers without upfront state appointment costs, another way to optimize just-in-time appointments, which can save thousands, if not millions of dollars for some carriers in particular. Not all compliance solutions are built to enable this, but if your team needs to deliver on a bottom line, this is a must and not a nice to have. What does this bring your business? You can quickly and efficiently build and execute a go-to-market strategy. Do you know which regions are underrepresented in your sales? Where do you have the most producers? Are there paths of least resistance to expanding your market share? You don't have to be a business analyst or a consultant if you have your own data immediately accessible at your fingertips. You can turn your team from a cost center to an actual value driver. In addition, you can reduce time and cost of data extraction and analysis yourself, not necessarily other teams. Those auto-filled forms and that always up-to-date producer information, you can unlock it from your team, from the compliance team, and let that surface information to other teams in your organization. Integrations can surface producer licensing and appointment data in each step of the sales to commission process to reduce the risk of non-compliant sales or commission payouts and operationalize just-in-time appointments. Confidently build a distribution growth plan to increase revenue. By using data to optimize distribution, you could create a faster producer onboarding experience. That means your producers are ready to sell faster and easier. And building a process for appointments, license renewals is good for everybody. It helps you build a reputation as a team that's easy to do business with, at, and for. And then drastically reduce state appointment costs. Operationalizing the just-in-time appointment flow allows carriers to appoint producers within margins of hours or days and not weeks. I wish that was around. And with termination rules, you can avoid the costs of paying to renew agents that don't actually write business. Finally, secure and protect market share. Harnessing compliance data saves back-end and operation costs. It lets you do more with your current headcount or do even more without increasing payroll. So it enables growth. That means more agents, more carrier partners, more geographic markets, and more insurance products. Without multiplying the amount of compliance-related work you and your staff need to keep on top of. Ultimately, I believe great people are enabled with great technology and in return create great experiences. In a lot of your workflows, it's the actual producer that's your customer. Many of you seek to retain top talent through positive relationships you're building and reinforce onboarding and producer lifecycle actions. But also, you are the customer. As an employee, you deserve to turn on your laptop in the morning, know what's expected of you, and have the tools and resources to get the job done. It doesn't hurt to have the support to do it correctly and get adequately compensated to do so. If you don't have the right tech stack for your process, you are not being enabled properly. AgentSync's producer and compliance management solutions are built to tackle the most challenging insurance workflows. I really am proud of the work I get to do day in and day out. Would love to open up for questions. I love the work that we're doing here with Sila, and just wanted to bring together the presentation to really understand that outdated processes and the stagnant data does hold you back from your job and doesn't allow you to effectively manage compliance risks if you're not enabled to do so. With compliance management tools, you can actually get full access and use of your data, and ultimately extracting this data will help you be more effective and efficient in your role. So it turns compliance from a cost center to an actual value creator for your organization. Jumped early into thank yous, but I really am excited to be part of Sila, be a part of the work we're doing, being at the conferences. Can open up for Q&A, but I also want you to take my email down and be in touch. I'd love to hear from you. I saw former colleagues, current colleagues. I would love to be in touch and hear how you're doing and about the work that you guys are doing to help empower this for the industry. I don't even know where to look. Any questions in the chat? Carly, let's see.
If an organization is using legacy systems, how would they go about implementing partial solutions or, upgrading somehow, without having to go, full new solution?
I think that's a great question. And at AgentSync, we always have a conversation about having to meet the industry where it is. All of this is about where your organization is today, and takes a little bit of discovery to understand what those legacy systems are, what parts of those can be integrated into newer workflows. And, as you mentioned, creating and layering on different systems can make more silos. And sometimes that is more challenging versus looking at the current problems you're trying to solve for, and not saying we rip everything out. It's just more a matter of what is needed and what solutions, a certain organization needs are very dependent and specific to their current needs and the type of persona they are really.
Anybody else has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. Looks like we have a very quiet audience today.
Does anyone want to answer the question about what data-driven means to their organization and introduce themselves and maybe their title? I feel like that was it's always very, I wouldn't say triggering, but it is an interesting feel when you are in the role of being so close to compliance data and no one's really asking you for the answers. Carly, okay, what about generative AI and how that fits into the equation, like ChatGPT? I feel like ChatGPT is a big topic across every industry right now, but as it pertains to insurance, I know I was recently at a conference in New York, and I think that's the theme for the InsurTech conference over there. Their following conference will be all about AI and where that technology sits. I think, as we've seen, it's so challenging to meet the insurance industry where it is today on what we do and how we try to liberate data for your use or for the use of a producer. And I think for AI to get involved, it will probably not be in my career, although never say never. I think AI is an amazing multiplier for humans. I think it can actually help efficiency, but I certainly don't think humans are going to be replaced in what we do in any of our, in any of our time. But it does help operations be more efficient. Certainly, we're not thinking of it as a complete replacement anytime soon. Dan, so I wasn't empowered to access or use data. If I had access through data and AgentSync, how would it have changed my licensing? Well, that's a great question. I think a lot of my workflows, I was at a smaller agency. We were tracking things very manually. I had very limited access. I just had access to, license expiration dates. I didn't have compliance periods. I didn't have CE expiration dates. It was very challenging to be running around tracking all these things for over 200 people by myself. I think when I get to talk to customers, it's one of the more compelling pieces of the conversation, to stay curious and understand that a lot of the same problems that I had years ago still continue to be the problem for different size organizations that may not understand what value they would get out of a system. I think that was very hard for leadership to understand. And does AgentSync show what agents are appointed and with whom? Yes, Vanessa, they do. I think a system for me at the time that would have been ideal is someone, I had licensing and appointment tracking to do. It would have been to have all of that presented. I'm sure there are many solutions, but the AgentSync actually was so compelling and appealing to me at the time too, that's actually how I did make the jump. But yes, it was a platform that would have shown me what I needed and wanted at the time. But yeah, ultimately keeping things in separate silos, keeping data that you need access to in separate silos is what is challenging. And I believe in the licensing administrator role is you're going to multiple websites to try to pull in data, or you do have leadership that has invested in a compliance solution. And that's why it was really important to get into this conversation and talk about how data is for you.
I have another question for you. Does AgentSync show what agents are appointed and with whom?
Yes, they can. Yes. And Sandy, I know Sandy's here, who knows Sandy knows the ins and outs of everything we do. And as far as I think the follow-up is program, what is it? Alert you on licenses that are expiring or have been terminated. Yes, we present license data, so from an IPR. So anything that has expired or is set to expire, or appointments that have been terminated, you can see all of that.
And then the follow-up to that is, how does your program alert you to licenses that are expiring or have been terminated?
The nuance of how this is presented is something can certainly give a little more insight to with a follow-up, Vanessa. But yes, it's a visible record. We have all this data reporting coming from the PDB and IPR.
Well, and I would just say that there are dashboards. It really depends on what the customer wants, right? Some customers prefer a dashboard that they can review daily. Others actually want triggered events that email someone to tell them, that the license is about to expire, but there's some flexibility there.
Yeah. We are one of several resellers that actually use an IPR data. So that's how we bring it in. I sit on a team that brings in a lot of different training data. That's just my day-to-day at AgentSync. And so some of that data isn't available necessarily from an IPR. And so it's a matter of what your organization's needs are. I think one of the slides I had mentioned would have been great to have. I didn't even know what a REST API was prior to being in a product role, but really understanding connectivity between different data sources. That's really how it helps not to have to leave a system to bring in data from different places or to try to do it manually. That is not an efficient use of any compliance team's time. Be offering a slimmed down solution or just full product suite that includes alerts of the PDB sync.
I think what you would be looking for there is probably just our API tool where you just want the data, right?
Yeah, not everyone leverages our platform. We're built on Salesforce, and you don't need to be a Salesforce customer to actually use AgentSync, but we do also have just simple API product, only API products. That seems what that question to be asking, Maureen. Yeah.
Right. The API is not just straight pass through of an IPR data. We clean it up, normalize it so that when you receive it, you can better understand what the data is and how you would use it.
All right, that looks like that was the last question that we have in the queue.
Okay. Thank you for having me, Sila. For those who are tasked with license and compliance, what's the first step we can take? I think that's a great question. I would say, think about what would you like to see today? So Dan's question is giving, a lot of ways to use data. For those of us tasked with license and compliance, if you're in this role, what is the first step you can take? I think for me, it was identifying the gaps. What would I like to see today? What would I like to support me? What tools could I use? And really, you don't have to come up with all the answers of how to get there. I think it'd be great to really identify those gaps first, and then have conversations. When I was a licensing administrator, I joined Sila. That was how I got involved. And with this group. And I just wanted to know what else is out there. That's what all our wonderful network is for, the message boards, and to really understand what tools are out there to identify those gaps. And then have conversations. I'm not in sales at AgentSync. I love to talk to any prospects, and I think it's actually very healthy to not only talk to our customers and talk about what is out there in the industry and what we'd like to see more of. And yeah, we can help bridge gaps. That's what we're here to do.
There's one more question in the queue. Is there a way to automate notification to carriers when licensees leave the agency?
Sandy, do you want to jump into this one?
Yeah, that one is a tricky one because that data doesn't come through NIPR, which agency a particular producer is affiliated with. Within our product, we have ways of tracking that information, but yeah, there's no automated NIPR warehouse way of tracking that information. It's one area that we'd like to see start to get reported by all states to carriers to the states, and then states to the PDB, so that everybody could know that information, because that's always been a really big sticking point for me as well, that someone may already be appointed, but it was when they were with some other carrier. No, yeah, all of the appointments come through the PDB, and so all the appointments come into the product, and so you can see everywhere that someone is appointed, not just your company, right? So anywhere they're appointed in every state. Yeah.
Sandy, this is Tina. I'm the one asking the question. So
Okay.
we have a licensing system. I think 9 states report appointments to the states. So we do get that information from NIPR, but we have to manually try to track the appointments for those other 9 states. And then when a licensee leaves, we don't necessarily have the licensing and appointment email for each carrier to be able to send out notice. I mean, those notices, some of them would just be to the home office that you can get out off of AM Best. I didn't know if there is a way where we could mark, termed in the profile, and then
yeah, what we decided to do was create those 9 states, create appointments in them, and it looks just like a state or an appointment that would come through the PDB, except the source, we set it to registry. And then that way, if they do leave and it gets terminated, it has a terminated status and would trigger that process, that termination process. Is that what you mean?
so it would notify the carriers that an individual is appointed with, that they've left. Would that be automated?
No, the notification to the carrier would still be upon the agency, right? But the agency has a way to set up triggers it within the product to either put a task out for someone to do it, or just a dashboard where somebody could work the list daily, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sandy, our resident expert. Well, thanks. I'm so glad you're on the call. We have a great team. We're all over the country as well, and really happy to help. If you reach out to me, if you have more questions, or the AgentSync team in general, we can certainly connect you with the answers you're looking for as well. Yes.
Okay, I think that might be the last one. So with that, Andrea, thank you so much for providing us with your insights on data-driven decision making. We really appreciate you and your time today. Everybody on the call today, please watch for the notice for the July webinar, which will be on adjuster licensing. And remember that our webinars are public and free of charge, and we really appreciate you sharing those invitations with anyone else who may be interested. So watch for and complete the post-webinar survey, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.